Once upon a time, there was a merchant who had a lot of money and dealings in the country. One day, he rode out to claim wealth in some country. The heat became too much for him, so he sat under a tree, put his hand in his bag, and ate a piece of bread he had with him and a date. When he finished eating the date, he threw away the stone, and suddenly he saw a tall demon with a sword in his hand. He approached the merchant and said, "Get up, so I can kill you just as you killed my son." The merchant said to him, "How did you kill your son?" He said, "When you ate the date and threw away its stone, the stone went into my son's chest, and he was doomed and died immediately." The merchant said to the demon, "Know, demon, that I am in debt and have a lot of money, children, a wife, and mortgages. Let me go home and give everyone their due. Then I will return to you. I promise you that I will return to you, and you can do with me as you wish." Then the genie made sure of him and released him. So he returned to his country and fulfilled all his obligations and delivered the rights to their people, and informed his wife and children of what had happened to him. So they wept, as did all his family, wives, and children. He made a will and stayed with them until the end of the year. Then he went and took his shroud under his arm and said farewell to his family and neighbors and all his people, and left despite himself. And there was crying and screaming over him. So he walked until he reached that garden, and that day was the first of the new year. And while he was sitting crying over what had happened to him, suddenly an old man came towards him with a chained gazelle. So he greeted this merchant and welcomed him and said to him, "What is the reason for you sitting in this place, and you are alone, and it is the abode of the genies?" So the merchant told him, "I traveled with a great merchant, and my cousin, this gazelle, had learned magic and divination from her childhood. She enchanted that boy into a calf, and the slave girl enchanted his mother into a cow and delivered her to the shepherd. Then I came after a long period of travel, and I asked about my son and his mother. She said to me, 'Your slave girl is dead, and your son has run away, and I do not know where he went.' So I sat for a year, my heart sad and my eyes tearful, until the Eid al-Adha came. Then she sent to the shepherd to allocate me a fat cow, and she was my concubine whom that gazelle had enchanted. So I rolled up my clothes and took the knife in my hand and prepared to slaughter her. But she cried out and wept bitterly. So I got up from her and ordered the shepherd to slaughter and skin her. But he did not find any fat or flesh in her, only skin and bones. So I regretted slaughtering her, and regret would not benefit me. So I gave her to the shepherd and said to him, 'Bring me a fat calf.' So my bewitched son brought me a calf. When the calf saw me, it broke its rope and came to me, rolled over me, howled and wept. I felt pity for it and said to the shepherd, 'Bring me a cow and leave this one.' When he saw the calf crying, his heart yearned for it and said to the shepherd, 'Keep this calf with the cattle.' All this while the jinn was astonished at the story of that strange speech. Then the owner of the gazelle said, 'O Lord of the kings of the jinn, all this happened while my cousin, this gazelle, was looking and seeing and saying, "Slaughter this calf, for it is fat." So it was not easy for me to slaughter it. I ordered the shepherd to take it and go with it. The next day, while I was sitting, the shepherd came to me and said, "O my lord, I will say something that will please you, and I have good news." I said, "Yes." He said, "O merchant, I have a daughter who learned magic in her youth from a woman. An old woman was with us. Yesterday, when you gave me the calf, I went in to her with it. My daughter looked at it, covered her face, and wept. Then she laughed and said, 'O my father, my standing in your eyes has become so low that you let strange men come to me." I said to her, "Where are the strange men? Why did you cry and laugh?" She said to me, "This calf that is with you is the son of my master the merchant, but he has been bewitched. His stepmother bewitched him and his mother. This is the reason for my laughter. As for the reason for my crying, it is because of his mother, whom his father slaughtered." I was extremely surprised at that, and could not believe the dawning of the morning until I came to you to inform you. When I heard, O genie, the words of this shepherd, I went out with him, drunk without wine, from great joy and happiness. And what happened to me until I came to his house? The shepherd's daughter welcomed me and kissed my hand. Then the calf came to me and rolled on me. So I said to the shepherd's daughter, "Is what you say about that calf true?" She said, "Yes, my master. He is your son and the apple of your eye." I said to her, "O girl, if you free him, then you will have from me all the cattle and money that your father had in his hand." She smiled and said, "O my master, I have no desire for the money except on two conditions. The first is that you marry me with it, and the second is that I capture the one who enchanted him and imprison her. Otherwise, I am not safe from her deception." When I heard, O Jenny, the shepherd's daughter's words, I said, "And you will have more than all the money that your father had in his hand. As for my cousin, her blood is permissible for you." When she heard my words, she took a basin and filled it with water. Then she made a vow to it and sprinkled the calf with it and said, "If God created you as a calf, then remain that way and do not change. But if you are bewitched, then return to your original creation by God's permission." Then he revolted and became a human being. I fell upon him and said to him, "By God, tell me everything I did to you and to your mother, my cousin." So he told me everything that happened to them. I said, "My son, God has provided for you someone who will save you and save your right." Then, O Jinni, he married her to the shepherd's daughter. Then she bewitched my cousin, this gazelle. I came here and saw these people and asked them about their condition. They told me what happened to this merchant. I sat down to see what would happen. This is my story. The Jinni said, "This is a strange story, and I have given you a third of his blood." Then the sheikh, the owner of the 2 greyhounds, came forward and said to him, "Know, O Lord of the kings of the jinn, that these 2 are my brothers, and I am the third of them. My father died and left us 3,000 dinars, so I opened a shop in which I buy and sell. My brother traveled with his trade and was absent from us for a year with the caravans. Then he came back with nothing, so I said to him, 'O my brother, did I not advise you not to travel?' He wept and said, 'O my brother, God Almighty has decreed this upon me. And these words are of no use, and I do not own anything.' So I took him and went up with him to the shop. Then I went with him to the bathhouse and dressed him in a fine garment, and we ate. I said to him, 'O my brother, I calculate the profit of my shop from year to year. Then I divide it between me and you without the capital.' Then I calculated the shop's profit from my money and found it to be 2,000 dinars, so I thanked God. So I thanked God Almighty and was extremely happy. I divided the profit between me and him in half. We stayed together for a few days. Then my brothers asked to travel as well and wanted me to travel with them. I refused and said to them, 'What did you earn from your travels that I could earn?' They insisted, but I refused. Instead, we stayed in our shops, buying and selling for a whole year. They kept offering me the trip, but I refused until 6 full years had passed. Then I agreed to travel and said, 'Brothers, we calculated the amount of money we have, and it came to 6,000 dinars. I said, let's bury half of it underground so that it will be of use if something happens to us. Each of us will take 1,000 dinars, and we will use it as a means of livelihood. They said, yes, I thought so. So I took the money and divided it in half and buried 3,000 dinars. As for the other 3,000, I gave each of them 1,000 dinars. We prepared goods and rented a ship and transported our needs on it and traveled for a whole month until we entered a city and sold our goods and made a profit on each dinar. Then we wanted to travel, but found on the beach a slave girl with a severed complexion. She kissed my hand and said, "My master, do you have any kindness or favors that I may repay you for?" I said, "Yes, I have the kindness and favors, even if you do not repay me." She said, "My master, marry me and take me to your country, for I have given myself to you. So do me a favor, for I am one with whom kindness and favors are done, and who is repaid for them. Do not be deceived by my condition." When I heard her words, my heart yearned for her for a matter that God Almighty wanted. So I took her, clothed her, and made a fine bed for her on the ship, and I welcomed her and honored her. Then we set off, and my heart loved her with a great love, and I did not leave her night or day, nor did I become busy with her to the exclusion of my brothers. They became jealous of me and envied me for my wealth, and my merchandise increased, and their eyes coveted all my wealth. And they talked about killing me and taking my wealth, and they said, "We will kill our brother and all the wealth will be ours." The devil made their deeds seem good to them. So they came to me while I was sleeping beside my wife and threw me into the sea. When my wife woke up, she was startled and became a demon, carried me, and showed me an island. She disappeared from me for a while and returned to me in the morning and said to me, "I am your wife who carried you and saved you from being killed by the permission of God Almighty. Know that I am a jinn who saw you and my heart loved you. I am a believer in God, and I surprised you in the state you saw me in, so you married me. And here I am. I have saved you from drowning. I became angry with your brothers, and I must kill them." When I heard her story, I was amazed and thanked her for what she did and said to her, "The destruction of my brothers is not appropriate." Then I told her what happened to me with them from the beginning of time to the end. When she heard my words, she said, "This night I will fly to them and sink their ships and destroy them." I said to her, "By God, do not do that. They are my brothers in any case." She said, "They must be killed." So I begged her sympathy, and she carried me and flew away and placed me on the roof of my house. So I opened the doors and took out what I had hidden underground and opened my shop after greeting the people and buying goods. When it was night, I entered my house and found these 2 dogs tied up in it. When they saw me, they came to me and cried and clung to me. I did not know until my wife said, "These are your brothers." I said, "Who did this to them?" She said, "I sent to my sister, and she did this to them. They will not be freed except after 10 years. I came while I was walking to her to free them after they had remained in this state for 10 years. I saw this young man. The jinn said, "It is a strange story, and I have given you 1/3 of his blood for his crime." Then the 3rd sheikh, the owner of the mule, came forward and said to the jinn, "I will tell you a story that is more amazing than the story of the 2, and he gave me the rest of his blood and his crime." The jinn said yes. The sheikh said, "O Sultan and chief of the jinn, this mule was my wife. She traveled, and I was away from her for a whole year. Then I completed my journey and came to her at night. I saw a black slave lying with her in bed. They were talking, flirting, laughing, kissing, and scratching each other. When she saw me, she hurried and went to me with a jug of water. She spoke over it and sprinkled me and said, "Get out of this form and into the form of a dog." I immediately became a dog. She threw me out of the house. I went out the door and continued walking until I reached a butcher's shop. I advanced and began to eat bones. When the shopkeeper saw me, he took me into his house. When the butcher's daughter saw me, she covered her face from me and said, "Do you bring a man to us and enter upon us with him?" Her father said, She said, "This dog has been bewitched by a woman, and I am able to free it." When her father heard her words, he said, "For God's sake, my daughter, free it." So she took a jug of water and spoke over it, and sprinkled a little of it on me, and said, "Come out of this form and into your first form." So I became my first form, and I kissed her hand and said to her, "I want you to bewitch my wife as you bewitched me." So she gave me a little water and said, "If you see her asleep, sprinkle this water over her, for she will become as you wish." So I found her asleep, so I sprinkled water over her and said, "Come out of this form and into the form of a mule." So she immediately became a mule. And this is what you are looking at with your own eyes, O Sultan and Chief of the Kings of the Jinn. Then he turned to her and said, "Is this true?" So she nodded and gestured, "Yes, this is true." When he finished speaking, the Jinn shook. From the joy, he gave him the rest of his blood. And here our first story ends. Follow us in the upcoming stories, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.